Okay, so today's topic is managing stress. Anybody familiar with that one? Yes. I don't think anybody in today's day and age is unfamiliar with this. So I just thought what I'd do is I'll put together a little presentation about what is stress actually, what does stress look like and feel like, and the effects of stress. And I'm going to do a practical tool to manage stress, and then any questions that have come out of that. So last time we talked about self-care, and today we're going to have a look at what's the why is self-care so important, the underlying causes of the importance of stress care. So the question is stress always bad? Now, I want to make sure that we understand that stress is essential to life. We would not get out of bed in the morning without stress. But there's a difference between good stress and bad stress. So the good stress is actually called eustress, and it's the one that leads to positive change. So it's the opposite of distress. So if you're looking at eustress, it can be fun and beneficial, and it's actually necessary for us. It's really good for our overall well-being, and it contributes to feelings of optimism and excitement about life. So it inspires us, it motivates us, it gives us autonomy and resilience, and it also helps us build muscle, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so what eustress does, it helps us shift out of the comfort zone and helps us manage life changes. So you will have eustress when you start a new job or when you start a new relationship. It will also be there when you're going to see an exciting movie or you're going on a roller coaster, for example. That's all eustress. And maybe you have had stress when you go to a new place. So if you're excited about going to this new place, you will have eustress. If you're overwhelmed, then you're probably not. But anything that helps us improve and make positive changes is eustress. So eustress and distress are similar, but they're different. So they resemble each other in the sense that you may feel nervous, you may have heart pounding, and your thoughts may race. But the difference is eustress lifts us up. It creates that sense of anticipation, of looking forward to something. But in distress, we're uncomfortable and overwhelmed because we don't have the mental, emotional, or physical resources to manage these challenges. So what we do is we flip into fight, flight, freeze. So fight, flight, freeze, we're all familiar with that. So we want to run for the hill, or we want to raise our club, because this is from caveman times, and hit the other person over the head, or we freeze and we want to fade into the woodwork because we're just so startled and so upset that we can't even move. And it's like animals who just freeze and don't want to be recognized for what's going on. So I'm going to give you a little introduction into the brain and into our physiology. So bear with me, but I think it will help you understand why we get so attached to stress, why we think we cannot shift out of stress. So the brain has, as you probably know, 3 areas. So there's the reptilian brain in the back, then we have the limbic brain in the center, and then we've got the neocortex that wraps all around that. And it looks a little bit like a gut. There is a strong gut-brain connection, and I'll talk about that at another time. I've already mentioned that, but it's really important. So if you want to remember what the brain looks like, so if you take your hand and you fold this fleshy part of your thumb is your reptilian brain, your thumb over that is your limbic brain, and then your hand over all of this, that's your neocortex. And I'll explain to that in a minute. So you've got a middle prefrontal cortex in the middle. So I'm not going to bother you with a lot of terms, but some I will have to use. So the middle prefrontal cortex is where we have our highest cognitive functions. This is where we build trust. This is where we build connection. This is where we have ethics and integrity. These are all the functions that help us become better human beings and relate to other people. It's also the part where we slap ourselves and go, oh my God. So the problem is when we really get stressed out, the middle prefrontal cortex goes offline. And when the MFP is offline, we make really stupid decisions. Because at that point, what happens is we have adrenaline coming in. And when adrenaline comes in, then all the blood gets redistributed from the brain, and especially from the middle prefrontal cortex, into the arms and the legs, so we can run faster or hit harder. So it activates all of that caveman mentality and physiology that allows us to deal with short-term stress and dangers and risks. So what we do is we get into this, and this is a pattern that's designed to be short-term. So we can deal with a saber-toothed tiger, or we can deal with a very short-term risk. It's not something that we're supposed to have for ages and ages. The problem is we are living in a world where we're constantly exposed to stress. And the other problem is that our brain is a patterning device. It looks for things that it already knows. So it goes by once as accident, twice as coincidence, 3 times as the beginning of a pattern. So that helps it free up some space to look for things that might be different. Now, why is that so important? It's great when it works. It's not so good when it doesn't. So especially when it comes to stress. So I just want to give you a little bit of how to show us how it works. So the brain consists of billions of neurons, and they make connections all the time. But once a connection has been established and it's been repeated over and over again, the brain stops making those connections and it goes back to those connections over and over and over again, which is great because it frees up a lot of space. But the problem is there's another aspect to how we make patterns, and that is called chemical. And so we've got these neuroreceptors. They are cells they're nerve cells, and what they do is they've got these neurotransmitters that pop. So we've had the electrical connection through the neurons, and now we've got the chemical connections. And so every time we have an emotion or a stress, and we start releasing these neurotransmitters, they log on to these cells and they pass on a chemical. And that could be adrenaline, that could be cortisol, that could be serotonin, it could be anything. And so every one of those cells has a specific shape. And every one of those neurotransmitters is like a key to a specific keyhole. The problem is what we do is when we are really stressed out, we become addicted to stress because the body goes, well, you're not really experiencing any contentment. You're not producing serotonin. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this up. We're going to make more receptor cells available to adrenaline. And so that means that now, in order to actually activate inside the cell the biological function that is needed to digest, to procreate, to activate the immune system, and all of those skills and all of those functions that we need, the brain goes, well, I just need stress in order to activate that. So what it does, the system starts adjusting, and what it means is you will need more and more stress in order to activate those absolutely essential functions to maintain any kind of productivity. Now, the problem is when we have a lot of stress going on, as I said, all of this goes out of the window. It goes out of the brain into arms and legs. We can't think properly anymore. So creativity and good judgment and really clear thinking goes out of the window. And the other problem is when we're really at risk, digestion and immune systems shut down. Because when we're facing a saber-toothed tiger, we don't want to deal with the diarrhea. We don't want to digest the last meal. We shut all of that down. And so again, short term, that's great. Long term, it's not. So health implications are really for long term, are really long term. So you may think that what you're doing right now is going to be okay, but in 10, 20 years time, that may be a different story. So and the difference and the reason for that is we perceive not just the saber-toothed tiger as a threat. We also perceive anybody who challenges our competence or our status in exactly the same way. So when we are fighting for survival, be it business-wise or in relationship, and it's always stress-driven, what we do is we run the same system that we would if we were to run for the hills or hit somebody over the head. So we become, and since our neurology and our physiology has adapted our system to having more and more stress neuroreceptors, we become addicted to stress. We need to have more stress. So I've had a client once who said to her, what are you doing on the weekend? She said, oh, I'm going to relax. And I said, what do you do? She said, I'm going to go free climb. And I don't know if you know what free climbing is. It basically means you're hanging off a mountain on from your fingertips. She thought that was absolutely incredibly relaxing because her job was so stressful, but she hadn't realized she was so addicted to the stress that she needed to have it on the weekend as well. So I'm going to give you very quickly just some stuff about adrenaline. So if you have any time, so adrenaline is produced on the kidneys. And if you've ever had any kind of tingling or any kind of funny feeling here on the, it's just below the rib cage or above and you get that feeling where you need to stretch yourself because it feels really uncomfortable, it means your adrenal glands are running running overtime. And because the thing is, any monkey, any guinea pig, any goat can produce vitamin C to deal with that kind of stress. We can't. When we use adrenaline, we run out, which is why we have burnout more and more these days. So when you feel your heart galloping, when you feel that your skin is getting cold, you start shaking, your hands start sweating, that is all adrenaline response. And so cortisol is another aspect. Cortisol is really important. We couldn't get out of bed in the morning without cortisol. Cortisol helps us elevate our glucose levels, and it regulates blood pressure and sugar and insulin. And so when we don't have that in the morning, we can't get out of bed. But the thing about cortisol is it comes down during the day, theoretically. But if we keep having stress over and over again, it doesn't come down. And so we don't go into that reset phase that we need during the night, where our system resets and goes into homeostasis. So we get into this whole space of brain fog, and we get tired all the time. And again, our immune system shuts down, and we have inflammation. And that is one of the big causes of all sorts of disease. Now, here's something you may not want to know, and that's cortisol gets aggravated by coffee. 1 cup of coffee can raise cortisol levels 16 times. So if you live on cortisol, especially in the afternoon and in the evening, your cortisol levels are so high during the night, your body will never go into rest and repair. So the long-term consequences of this are, again, burnout. Well, it means we have a short fuse and we can't problem solve. So what we need to do is we need to get out of that sympathetic nervous system function, and we need to get into the parasympathetic nervous function, which is the rest and recharge. And the fastest way to do that is through breathing. So what we want to do is we want to get out of that space where we don't have control of our brain. So remember, this was the neocortex and this was the middle prefrontal cortex. We get into this space where we can't function, and we operate from this space, right? So the important thing is you build resilience and you manage change more easily when you do something new every day, when you break habits, when you learn new skills. And they can just be micro changes, just some little things where you just eat something new, or you go a different route, or you sit in a different chair at dinner, or maybe occasionally you swap sides of the bed with your partner. Anything like that gets you a little bit out of your comfort zone, but allows you to build some resilience. And exercise is absolutely essential. So the other thing for business owners specifically is set realistic goals. There's nothing harder to reach than a goal that you will never be able to reach. And that causes lots of stress. So since the fastest way to reset is a breathing exercise, and I don't know, have we got time for that? Can we do a quick breathing exercise? No?
Yep, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So what we do is very, very quickly, Jay, we're going to breathe in for 4. We hold on 4. We breathe out on 4, and we hold for 4. And we're going to do that 4 times. And I think we can manage. That's about a minute. And what it will do is it will help reset your nervous system. Okay, so if you just want to relax for a moment, just put your arms down where it feels comfortable and relax your legs. And then we breathe in, we hold, we breathe out, and we hold. So if you want to breathe in on 4, hold on 4, breathe out on 4. Hold, breathe in, hold, breathe out on 4. Breathe and hold, breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Hold, Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. And hold. And then take a really deep breath in. And if you want to just shake your body a little bit, you will have reset your nervous system. Thank you so much for your attention. And if you would like to have a chat with me, please feel free to connect.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Angela. Anybody got any questions for Angela? If you have, just put your virtual hands up, please. I was just going to say, and that everything was going fine with me with that until you mentioned the coffee. Damn. Go ahead, Jay.
So it's not actually a question, but it's sort of a backup for what Angela was just saying. So while I was up in Queensland running around like an absolute idiot trying to get 7 days work done in 3, I actually dropped a $2,000 a month coaching client because they were stressing me out so much. And I wasn't sleeping. I was running on adrenaline. It was 10 cups of coffee a day. I dropped them. I'm now sleeping. But in regards to what you were saying about the addiction, now that I'm not as stressed, I'm walking around feeling there's something missing all the time. Yeah. So what you say there about you have that addiction to constantly being on the go because you've been doing it for so long. When you stop doing it, you're like, it's like I'm missing something. I've left a child in a car or something like that. It's like an apprehension. Does that make sense?
100%.
Absolutely. What often happens when people are running on that high level for such a long time, they go on holidays and they get sick on the first day.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Can I add something, Angela?
Mark?
Oh.
Go ahead.
So Angela and I have spoken about this in a breakout room beforehand, and I'm just like Jay. I'm on the go 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day, never stops. On Sunday, my partner sheepishly asked me, "So are you going to work today?" And it was a "You're not going to work today." That was what was behind that statement. So I just said, no. And I spoke to Angela about this. I've started to carve out time for her on a weekend, on a Sunday. So she took me to the most anyone who saw my post yesterday, the most incredible, huge temple, but all the surrounding things involved in this temple. It was that big, and I enjoyed it that much. She goes, I said, "Oh, do you want to get some lunch?" She goes, "Lunch? It's 4:30. So I enjoyed it that much, actually not being switched on, that I'd spent 5 hours there and it went by like it was half an hour. It was incredible. And I was that tired that I slept all the way there in the car for 90 minutes and most of the way back. So it's just amazing. But I have the issue of my body creates too much cortisol, like a ridiculous amount for 3 people. So it's like I'm on speed. So I was actually taking a product in Australia called Cortitrol, which is a Pharmanex product to dull my cortisol levels down. So what Angela's saying is 1,000,000% correct.
It's the sort of stuff that we need to be looking at, keeping a check on ourselves, because we can talk about our business health, but if we haven't got our health, the business suffers dramatically as well. So thanks very much, Angela. I'll just stop that.